Once upon a time, I got a video response from a user named Humble Orthodox, and he was perhaps the most arrogant person I had ever come in contact with on YouTube, and presented this attitude of, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, and step aside because I've actually studied philosophy. And I personally found it insulting because he presumed that I was uneducated about subjects which I was not uneducated, and had a totally arrogant tone. In fact, I think somewhere I might even have the video. Long story short, a little bit down the road, this user converts to Islam, starts a new channel, DawahFilms, calls himself Ali now, and for a little while he actually seemed like less of a jerk-off. But then he got in massive drama with Thunderfoot, and a couple days ago, having forgotten that I was even subscribed to him, I saw a video by DawahFilms, as he's now called The Enlightened Man. And my first piece of advice to you, Ali, would be to stop fixating on Thunderfoot. What this video was essentially 12 minutes of footage of Thunderfoot juxtaposed with footage of Bin Laden, of another speaker, and of the news, and all of this is somehow supposed to drive home the point that the Western world and Western values and human rights are somehow to blame, that for September 11th. I think that's what he's trying to say. I want to make this a video response directly to Ali, but it's strange enough to be talking into a camera, let alone trying to talk into a camera as if I'm talking to somebody else who may or may not watch the video. So I'm just going to pretend I am talking to Ali, and bear with me here if you're not him and yet you're watching this video. So first of all, in the only 2 minutes of the video, or less than, of a nearly 14-minute video, Ali speaks for all of 2 of it, and he goes on this little rant about the enlightened world. The enlightened world wants a Muslim that's blah blah blah. The enlightened world blah blah. And the question that I'm tempted to pose, that needs to be asked here, is who is the enlightened world? Because it seems that, Ali, that you have a fixation with Thunderfoot that you just need to drop for your own psychological well-being, and pull your head out of your ass and realize that this is a very, very I don't even know where to begin. Just dismantling all of this. First of all, I have no idea how you arrived at the idea that these the West and what the value system of Bin Laden were ever as far apart as you might imagine. I mean, they are human beings after all, with the same psychology, and having a sense of in-group and out-group, and a desire for revenge when you feel your in-group is has been violated by some other out-group. But your attempts to show that because he tried to crash the U.S. economy, that this, for the sake of justice for people in Palestine and in Iraq because of the sanctions, that he was using utilitarian capitalist ethics, and that he was fighting for human rights. And you see, these things are a problem, and I no longer believe in them, and I'm no longer, you believe that you've somehow freed your mind from Western dogma or whatever, which I doubt that. But moving on from that, the problem with that is that economic warfare is essential to warfare, and vastly predates capitalism. Siege warfare goes back to the ancient world, and the idea is essentially to destroy your enemy's economy, to bring them to the point of starvation, and where their society is crippled so that they can be conquered. Looking at more recent history that's still pre-capital, the American War of Independence, or was as we call it, the American Revolution, you had a situation in which England was already in debt from fighting with the French in North America, and decided to tax the American colonists. And the American colonists didn't take well to being taxed, and fought for independence, and yet they only had a ragtag army against the most powerful army in the world, the British army. So how did they defeat them? Was it through some, we kicked their ass in every battle? No, Americans got their asses handed to them practically every time that they fought the British directly. But what they could do was drag the war on to the point where Britain could just no longer afford to fight. It is essentially one of the founding principles of warfare that, wars aren't so much won, wars are lost when your side can't afford to fight anymore. Militarily, the American colonists stood no chance of actually defeating the English on the battlefield. It was only by just dragging the war out and then eventually the French intervening on America's side that led to the British allowing independence. And in more recent history that'll be relevant to bin Laden, fought with the Mujahideen and seemed to have this belief that he could do to America what they did to the Soviets, forgetting, of course, that they probably wouldn't have succeeded at all without succeeded in defeating the Soviets without the Americans' help. And so he forgot that the Soviet Union was already starting to fracture and had problems when they invaded Afghanistan. And so from what I can gather, he was just militarily and strategically a fool. He thought that he could replicate what happened with the Soviet Union attacking America, but again, with many of these successful wars in which, the Soviet Union, that was a superpower, they lost to a guerrilla army, but they were already in trouble in a larger sense. The British lost to the American colonists, but they were already in debt from fighting the French. Bin Laden decided to attack America at the height of his power, and caught a bullet in the head for it instead of defeating us. And the more important point, I guess, to be made here is that in spite of your accusing, the enlightened world of having this sort of calculating, totally utilitarian cost-benefit analysis, the very fact that we would go after bin Laden and put so much time and money into doing that sort of undercuts this thesis, because it doesn't strategically play that much of a value. Even after a certain point, our own generals were saying he's just not important anymore, and we still pursued him. So crippling your enemy's economy, destroying your enemy's economy, making them bankrupt so that they can no longer fight you, that's about as old as warfare strategies get, and has nothing to do with utilitarianism or capitalism. It's warfare. Warfare 101. The second point is I'm not the first person to point this out as well, is that if injustice or human rights violations, American foreign policy, that sort of thing was sufficient to explain the actions of bin Laden, and there was no, say, religious motivation or cultural motivation, however you want to frame it, that pretty much every country south of Mexico would be attacking us, or we'd have bombers from all over. But we don't. The truth about American foreign policy is that, pretty much pick a point on the globe, and we've done some injustice to, practically every country in the world, other than our primary allies, I suppose. So why did he only name other Muslim countries? Is it because that's what he considers part of his in-group? I think so. He didn't say, and we're doing this for the, Brazil and Argentina and Panama and Guatemala and you know, every other country that America has violated foreign policy-wise, very, very narrow range that fit his own in-group view. So you are, I think, in my opinion, obsessing over Thunderfoot and starting to grasp at straws, is what it comes down to. You are trying in any way possible to show that you know, this worldview is I don't even know what point of view you're trying to get across, but you know, the enlightened world, secular humanism. I mean, you're building up abstractions as if that's the way reality is. That's not the way that Western society is. That's not the way America is. The picture is much more complicated than that, and you talk about xenophobia and pushing people to assimilate, but that to a certain degree is pretty much universally true of any society. It's a human thing, and this enlightened world you keep talking about is an abstraction that exists only in your imagination, and you should calm down and gain some perspective.